an outsider
Yeah, yeah.
can see like a pattern emerges to an outsider that the insider doesn't see because it's in plain sight.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, now I'll
Okay,
shut
so,
up.
yeah, so, well, no,
So how,
so how could something like this work?
well, obviously, it's not just news that you won the Best of Canada for the bench, but not Neon Camper's picking it up. Maybe, you know, I have done work for Neon Camper. I did their Neocon press material, and I've done some brochures and like the Karam Rashid, was it Wavelength Bench or something? It was a while ago. Maybe they would co-sponsor it. I don't
Oh,
know.
maybe, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But then that would give them control, and I don't know if you want that.
Well, it's curious, because this is a product launch, and it's one of the, I think, we've been in here for 10 years, and one of the things we've always relied on, it was a couple of years ago, the penny dropped for us, was that we need to take control of our communications. We had always relied on our clients, who are talking about whatever it is the product launch
Right,
is,
and
we had designed.
and you're like in 10-point type, maybe.
Yes, down the
once.
bottom, maybe,
Right.
right? Yeah. And it just, I mean, we're a little nerdy about, we get into the weeds and we understand, we're very focused on designing the object. And it was only a few years ago that it really dawned on us that we need to sort of step back and look at the broader context in which we're doing that to make what we're doing more effective. And so we've been on a bit of a path of, as budgets allow and all the rest of it, because budgets are tight, as to what we can do. So we've been looking at that and trying to own a little bit of what that message is and how we communicate it.
Oh, I'll put it on the side.
And so we're still on that path. We're very, very much at the early days of that path, but really beginning to see the need for it. And
Well,
want to take control of it.
I'm glad that you recognize that, because I get so fed up sometimes. I have meetings with companies who have newsworthy things going on, and they don't want to spend the money, and they say, oh, we'll do it ourselves. And of course they never do.
Right.
And why would they expect to? And if they did it, they wouldn't, it wouldn't be well written.
Right, yes, exactly.
They shouldn't waste their time doing things that
Others are better at, right?
and can do quickly.
Quickly and more effectively, yes. And that's the point we're at, right? We're realizing very much that that's the case. And how to approach media with something that's newsworthy, honestly, I've got no clue how to do that.
Well, I have.
So,
one of the things that's built into a budget is compiling the media contact list, because it's always going to be a bit different for every,
Sure.
not only every client, but every campaign,
Right,
depending
of
on
course,
what the product or service is. And then doing follow-up with email and phone, and trying several times before giving up.
Yes. Which is not to be underestimated.
Several times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
And often it can persuade them or lead them to say, well, this isn't right for us, but for the something issue, then maybe, you know.
Of course.
So and also I'm familiar with a lot of them.
Right. Yeah, you certainly work in our industry. You're familiar with our industry, which is another thing. To get someone who does media things but knows nothing about the business we're in. I mean, and not just, I mean, we're into furniture design, we're not just industrial design.
There are a million PR people, but how many of them know about design, and how many of them can write?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the problem is if you use a normal design PR firm, you wind up writing it because they don't know anything about design. And did Parcel do any media campaigns for you?
We've been, but budgets were the reasons we didn't. I mean, they certainly had proposed to do things like that, and we just couldn't afford it at the time. So we haven't really done that. in any measurable. We did the IDS show with this 2 years ago, and they did a fair amount with that, and we did reasonably well, but not as well as we have liked. So whether that was because
Did
we
you-
hamstrung them with a
Did you
budget,
have a
or-
press kit in the,
Yeah.
in the,
Yep. We had the
press
whole-
room?
Yeah, we did. We had all of that, and very little happened with regard to that.
So they probably didn't do any follow-up.
Perhaps there wasn't any follow-up.
And they
perhaps-
didn't send it out
Perhaps
to
not.
media
Right,
contacts.
perhaps not.
Because, I always do that, and when I'm doing an email, I do not send a mass, like to 40 or 100 email contacts. I do it, each one
Individually
by itself,
focused, right?
and so that I can track it.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And you have to validate the contact list every time you do it, because people move around
Yeah,
so
that's
much
right.
and get fired, and journals die and get born so quickly.
Mhm. Sure.
And there's not just the hard copy ones, but there's, these e-ones, like,
Yeah,
like
right.
Dezeen
Yeah.
and all of those.
Mhm.
And then also, I would talk to you to find out, who do you want it to go to that I
Yeah.
might not be aware of,
Right.
because I'm sure there are.
Mhm.
And one of you is from England.
That's me.
Oh, you have erased 95% of your
It depends
British
It
accent.
depends on the company I'm in.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I don't know, maybe you would want to send something to British or European
Oh, I think
journals or
definitely that.
contacts
Yeah,
that you would know better than
Sure.
me.
Mhm.
I don't know what Parcel was charged, or what their budget was for a media campaign. And if they didn't have any design-related media contacts, I don't know how much good it would do you. But I always send a generic boilerplate proposal.
Okay.
And it's just a standard campaign, which would have like the press release, and it would have, this is assuming that there's supplied photography.
Okay, yeah.
And so I would write cut lines
Yeah.
for, I don't know, like up to half a dozen images, and background around the firm,
Mhm.
and a short, they'd each be one page.
Mhm.
And on the talking head,
Yeah.
which is presumably you,
It is, yeah.
it's, and then do the media list, and then do follow-up. That's, it's hard to do that for under 30 hours. But,
Sure.
But
Yep.
at least the first one.
Yeah.
And then next time there's a campaign, since the media kit's modular, you already have the bio backgrounder on you, you already have the company backgrounder, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that's
Right.
there, that's already done. So 30 hours, and my rate's $150 an hour, so
Okay. Do
that's the math.
Okay. Okay.
And also, I do photography, and I've done, like product and architectural photography, and it's been published in places like Canadian Interiors. You can see that on my website.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and I have an assistant that I work with lots of lighting and reflectors and screens, so we can do a whole studio.
Right.
So, but that would be a separate budget.
Okay.
But, so that it can be a one-stop
Okay.
thing
Okay.
for whatever you need. And then, if we're gonna work together, then, I could bring my associate Merrill in, who's the business consultant, web
Oh, right. Okay.
optimization
Yeah.
whiz, if that's of interest to you. And then I work with other people if anyone wants social media, like Twitter and Facebook and all that. But I find most of my clients, it's B2B.
Right.
It's not business to retail.
No.
And so
There's limited value
all
in
the
that.
Twitter and
Yeah.
all of that and
Yeah.
blogging, it's not as important.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
So obviously, I guess the bench with Neon Camper, maybe you could use that if you do it on your own to publicize it, but also to make people aware of your company.
Well, that's exactly the larger point is that, right? Because we're not just about this, we're about all these other things,
Right.
And that's what we would
So-
want to maintain continuity and to get, for the longest time, that chair you're sitting in, we launched that for all seating in 2009. And for the longest time, we were known as the chair guys. We were just chair guys. Well, we actually were. That was the first chair we'd ever designed to develop. Not chair guys at all, but that's what it became known as. We don't want to be known as the such and such guys.
Like Tom, you do more than Tom Deacon
We're not
does.
Tom Deacon, that's right. Yeah, most of what we do is systems and tables and stuff like we did for Takeo. That we wouldn't mind owning because that's what we do really well at. That's where our skill set is. We've seen a lot of success there. Our table collections for Neon Camper and the new system we've just launched, all that. Just won another good design award for that. And so that's all more of what we know. But really, we designed this as a power box for Arconas. We do work with those guys as well, some electronic things. So there is some more traditional industrial design, but most of it's focused on furniture. So to get that tone and balance right in the way that it's all laid out and communicated, it would be important.
Well, the thing about your bench is that it's very cool and memorable.
Yeah,
Whereas
it is.
there are so many systems
That's true. That's very true.
and case goods that are nice, but how does the brain remember them? But
It's
but
very
that
true.
bench
Yeah,
it's
you're right.
it's really cool, and you're not often going to have a signature iconic sculptural
It's true.
product like that.
That's very true, and that's one of the challenges a little bit is that the things we tend to be largely quite proud of are details and bits and pieces as they come together, which from 10 feet away, you're never going to see them.
Oh, another cool
So-
thing you did, was it for Neon Camper, the concrete accessories?
The desk accessories, yeah, there's a bunch of those around here, yeah. Yeah, that was all part of our new Sun collection. These are the bookends.
That seems to me to be
I think
pretty unusual.
I think it is too, and the story behind that.
I think that there should be a campaign on that too.
I do too. There's a whole collection.
I would
There's
make that the
planters.
second campaign.
Absolutely, there's all these planters.
So see, we think alike.
Absolutely. So there's a whole series
It's
of
like a
planters.
dog.
that go- Well, it could be a dog. Well, I hadn't thought about that, but there's planters in various sizes and different things. So the story here is that the guys that make our, do you know Palaform? Kai Fu at Palaform? They do fireplaces and concrete fireplaces mostly is what they do.
I've heard of them, but I don't know them.
They cast our bench. They're the ones that, when I contacted Lafarge about who uses that concrete, they're the only ones licensed around here to do that. So we got in touch and he got very compelled by the whole process, so he's casting the bench. Well, getting to know them a little bit and being the process.
Oh, I think,
geeks
was
we
that
are.
in your story?
Probably.
When, I think I remember reading something about
Yeah.
that in your submission
Right.
for Best of Canada.
Yeah, and one of the things we noticed through the process is that they're casting concrete, and every time they cast something, they've got a whole bunch of concrete that's left over that's just curing, right? We thought, we asked him, would you like a bunch of small parts that you could make with excess concrete? He said he'd love to do that. So that was when this idea was born. So Kai's making all this from excess concrete. So one of the variables here is that we get inclusions because the concrete's starting to set up. So it's a bit thick, but it gives it a bit of a unique feel. Each one, Klaus loves it. The color is a little inconsistent because they mix up for batches, but from one piece to
But
another.
in a sense, that's good because it gives it the look of the hand.
Well, that's what
People
Klaus loves
pay
about
more
it,
for
and
that.
people will pay more for it. That's absolutely right. That's the story. So this is a recycling
So
story.
it's high touch.
That's absolutely, well, and feel it, right? It's a
And
beautiful
people
material,
want to feel
right?
it.
They do. Yeah.
They always do.
Yeah.
It's brilliant,
So-
actually, because
Photography's being done now.
it's
because of
heavier.
photos.
So you can,
Yeah,
I mean, it's substantial.
I like the pen cup here. Is one of the bits I like most about that. That's got a very tactile feel.
Like, has this
It's
been
got a
at shows like what's that, the New York
The ICFF.
Yeah, yeah.
This is new. This is all weird. I mean,
But-
Clive hasn't photographed this yet, so these are all
So Neon
rejects,
Camper's
actually.
doing that.
So this is it's a Neon Camper thing. We had them at Craft Ontario Gallery for during September, October. 'Cause I teach at Sheridan, the industrial design program there, and they had a show for faculty work. So I had that, and I had this chair. This chair I'm sitting on here is a really good story too. We make this with the homeless folks.
Is Scott,
Yeah, Scott Law. You know Scott?
Scott, yeah, oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
He's the director there.
Right, yeah, I thought he was there, yeah.
Yeah.
Scott with one T.
Scott with one T. Won't stand out. That's memorable, right? Yeah.
So, so that's, okay, but what I do is, I guess, just a piece in a
Yeah.
bigger, bigger piece, and my associate Merrill, like, is a business consultant,
Mhm.
so he works with, like, the big picture.
Yeah.
I'm more a detail guy
Right.
to work on specific campaigns.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
What you
interesting
do.
for the perspective that you would have on what's worth investing in a larger campaign on, right? I mean, a larger campaign on the system we just launched for Takeo may not be the best use of our time and energies, but a big campaign around this might be, right?
Well, Takeo should,
Dude, they should be doing it too, and I presume that, well, do you know what? They're kind of funny. They've stopped showing at NeoCon. They've pulled right out. And what they do is they have a really good dealer base, and they put all that money that they would send to NeoCon, and they fly all the dealers up. They've been doing, like, I think for the first 12 weeks or something after it launched, they had, every day, they had another group coming up. And it's enormously successful. Right out
well,
of the gate, that product. So it's like, well, what?
yeah, that's interesting, because that 2008, I think, Office Insight store near the top says that they have a new Neocon showroom.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did have a new one. And then the next year, they were down the hall in a smaller pared-back showroom. And then the next year, they were gone and they were off-site. They had an off-site showroom for a couple of years.
A lot of people
And-
do that.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it didn't work for them or they just didn't see the value in for the way that they do business.
They don't want to have a Chicago showroom.
They don't want to have a Chicago. It's not worth it to them. They're doing just fine by having very targeted. You know, they have very specific invitations. They bring their dealer groups up and all the reps, and they entertain them here. And they've got a great showroom that they've just redeveloped, and it's filled with all kinds of great things. And they've rebranded themselves. A whole new photography brand and website, and the whole new position is really owning that section of the market that they're in. They don't want to be Technion, but they want to be the person that when people, can't really afford Technion, they're right there, right? And they're having a product that's going to be as good, so in certain ways. So that's this new position that they're in, which is great. It's great for us because they're doing a lot of product development, and it seems to be really paying off for them.
Yeah, that even more fascinating to me is the micro differences among furniture systems.
Yep.
Or systems furniture.
Oh yeah, it is. It's curious.
I mean, obviously, there's a whole political dealer dimension and
Mhm.
relationship dimension, which
Yeah.
must be huge,
It's
because
huge.
what makes Technion better than Steelcase or Herman Miller or Knoll or vice versa
Yep.
is something that I never have grasped. And when I've asked individual designers, it seems to be relationship.
It's all about relationship. It is. Yeah. When we launched that chair with all seating, I went all through North America doing sales tours with the reps and going to see people, and it was astonishing how many. What I saw was you could put any chair in that sales rep's hands, and his client will buy it because they trust it.
Yeah.
They trust who that dealer is. They trust who that person is.
And that's why salespeople
And that's it.
make more money than anyone else,
I know.
because they're the key.
That's right, yes. So it was interesting because they were the curators. I mean, some of these independent reps, they're not necessarily repping whatever the dealer's got. They'll be very careful about which lines that they put together to take to their clients because they know their clients. And so it was a real education in how those relationships are crafted and developed and maintained. So there's a huge amount of trust involved.
So if you have a good media kit,
Hmm.
then it could help the dealer sell.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And, I mean,
Much like this does.
right, well, that was, that's probably once in a lifetime. But if you have something that,
Yeah.
that checks every box and the competitors don't,
Mm.
then it's appropriate to do that.
It is. I think with Takeo, the real thing was that Kevin is Phil's son, and he's now the CEO out there. And one of the things he said was when they had these reps come up and said, Kev, this is great and everything, but why is anyone going to buy this over Hayworth? And he threw out a ballpark of what he assumed this workstation was cost, and they were like, when they costed it out, it's like 2/3 of that, and it's like, well, that's why you're going to buy this over that one, right? Because it's a third less expensive, and delivers everything that everyone else does. So that's their position, is that it's not that it's better,